we got to talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder. Oklahoma City Thunder with AJ Mitchell have been special to start the season. And that's so important when given their current circumstances with guys like Cason Wallace and Jalen Williams and Alex Caruso all missing time. And mainly those guys talking about Case and Alex on the perimeter of having a backup guard like AJ Mitchell be able to come in. Also, Nikola Topic, who a lot of people had predicted as a potential breakout candidate, as somebody that didn't play any of last year, and unfortunately with some kind of testicular issue. I think he had surgery or something like that, has missed the early portion of this season as well. AJ Mitchell was kind of picking up where he left off last season. On the CBS article that I pulled up, it says just when you thought the Oklahoma City Thunder, with their young championship roster and 11 potential first round picks rolling in over the next 7 drafts, couldn't get any richer. Here comes Mitchell and probably the breakout player of the young season. AJ Mitchell's averaging 18.3 points per game, 4.8 rebounds, 3.5 assists per game on 56.8% true shooting, coming off the bench as a potential six man of the year candidate for this team. It hasn't come entirely out of left field. You saw his ability last season in irregular mop up stints, and he was a summer league star, but there was just no room for him to get consistent minutes. He wasn't part of the playoff rotation, but with Jalen Williams, Isaiah Joe, Kenrich Williams all sidelined to start the season. Again, Cason Wallace and Alex Caruso have also missed a little bit of time here as well. Mitchell has taken full advantage of his time to shine by scoring at least 14 points in all 4 games off the bench. And this isn't supplementary stuff. He has been a legit go to scorer in crucial stretches, almost impossible to guard at times with his elite balance, shifty stop start cadence, and deft gray area touch in traffic. Shea Gills Alexander said he just knows how to play. And as generic as that assessment may sound, it couldn't ring more true. Watch the footwork, the instructional video perfection on his show and go drives, the craft of his pump fakes, his mid range pull up game, and pull up bag is deep. He can do it going both ways, and his downhill acceleration hits like a punch. This is actually laughable that OKC, with all its talent and future assets, has a guy this good just hanging around in the depth chart shadows. Every team in the league would kill for a backup point guard like this. The Mavericks, Rockets, and Timberwolves, or a half dozen other teams, would jump at the chance to insert him as their starting point guard right now. This is not a fluke. This dude can flat out play. He's going to be a major contributor for the Thunder even when all these guys get back, and he just may become one of the league's hottest trade assets as the deadline nears, as if the Thunder need any more of those. First off, the OKC Thunder are not trading AJ Mitchell. No way. No, 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 no way. That's number one. Number two, the article is so right. If AJ Mitchell were starting right now for the Dallas Mavericks, and you had a lineup now where AJ Mitchell's your starting point guard, Klay Thompson's your two, Cooper Flag slides to his proper position at the three. Anthony Davis plays the four, and you have Derek Lively start at the five with someone like Daniel Gafford first off the bench at the center spot. Now you have a more actualized lineup. You have two knockdown 3 point shooters, excuse me, and AJ Mitchell and Klay Thompson on the perimeter. Cooper Flag gets to be more of a traditional small forward as opposed to being this high level ball handler, decision maker. Cooper Flag is someone who is a play finisher and someone who can create offense for himself given proper spacing. But he's not somebody who is a floor general. He is not a high level decision maker as far as being a facilitator, and I don't think that he's a offense starter. I don't think he's someone that's a offense generator that is going to bring the ball up the floor, make decisions with the basketball, and essentially direct an offense. He's somebody who works as a good pillar within a ever flowing offense. I think that's why it's notable that even dating back to his time with Montverde, he's played around so much significant talent. Yes, he's always skied above the rest in terms of how talented he is, and he's a high level mid range shooter, high energy finisher around the basket, and somebody that is able to rebound at a good level as well, which helps him on the offensive glass, helps him with pushing the ball up the floor when he grabs it off the defensive rebounds. But having a traditional point guard positions him in a much better way. With the Rockets, same thing. They've had real big issues with turning the ball over and initiating offense in the half court. You now slide Amen Thompson to the two. You put Kevin Durant at the three. Sure, you could still have someone like Jabari Smith Jr. at the four, and then Alperen Sengun at the five, with Steven Adams coming off the bench. Again, you kind of settle that lineup. You get somebody who's a good decision maker, a solid defender on the perimeter, and somebody who can be a table setter for you. You add another 3-point shooter next to Kevin Durant. You add another 3-point outlet for someone like Alperen Sengun, and now Amen Thompson just gets to be what he is, what he's been best at since being drafted, which is a downhill slashing threat off ball with a point guard who can get him the ball in the right spots. The Timberwolves, they desperately need somebody who can be a table setter because Mike Conley just cannot be that guy for them anymore. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker was a great representation of somebody who could step in, make good decisions with the basketball, and defend at a high level, hit the three ball at a 37% clip, and it made them a really effective basketball team in Nickeil Alexander-Walker's minutes. AJ Mitchell, this is a long-winded way of saying for the Oklahoma City Thunder, he is really a luxury. He is truly a luxury item for them because they have so much depth at the guard positions. Kaysen, Isaiah Joe, Alex Caruso, Aaron Wiggins, Nikola Topic. I mean, technically, Lou Dort plays like the 2/3 for them, so you can mention him in that guard rotation as well. AJ Mitchell is a luxury item for this team, and a handful of positions across the league, a handful of organizations across the league could use somebody like AJ Mitchell as a starting point guard. Now, what does his kind of trade value look like? I think it should be significantly high. The biggest issue is that he's somebody that, because his cap hit is so low and his year to year salary is so low, how do you even trade for somebody that's this impactful on a night to night basis without having to without basically having to give up really good draft capital to make up for the fact that he's on such a good contract? Because you're going to have to give up really strong draft capital to make up for the fact that financially you're not going to be giving back a fringe all-star caliber player or anybody in that price point, because that's a $20 million plus a year player, and that's not where AJ Mitchell is on the cap sheet for Oklahoma City. He is a special talent. Last year, he had already started showing strides of it prior to his injury, and then coming back from the injury again, that, like the article mentions, there wasn't much of a place for him. Cason Wallace was playing himself into deep rotation minutes, especially with what he was able to do defensively on the perimeter. Isaiah Joe, of course, is a walking 39% from beyond the arc. Alex Caruso was pivotal to their postseason run with what he was able to do on both sides of the floor, especially as a shot maker late in the series against Indiana, and then what he was able to do as a perimeter defender for them, both like on a night-to-night basis and just from a culture standpoint. I think he just brought a certain kind of energy to that team from what he could do defensively as a team defender, and so it made it hard to like reacclimate AJ Mitchell into the rotation. But this year, again, the window is wide open for him. And this year, I also think it's going to be really hard to let that same thing happen to him again. I think even with Isaiah Joe coming back, even with Jalen Williams coming back, like I think I could go out on a limb and say confidently that AJ Mitchell is the front runner by a decent margin for sixth man of the year. And I don't think that's a guy that's just going to fall out of your rotation after last year showing signs of being this high level guard, and then this year building on it with even more opportunity. So they have a really good chance of being able to protect their peace a lot this season with their injury issues because they have Shea as an MVP leading candidate. Again, a dude that I think is right there up there with Jokic and Victor Wembanyama as the top three for the MVP right now. And Chet Holmgren, it looks like he's really thriving and taking that secondary role next to Shea, and then having AJ be this like stabilizing force. Again, as the article mentioned, he's been scoring in double figures in every single game. He's been an absolute constant for them off that bench as somebody who's been able to hold the fort down. And thankfully, that helps that Oklahoma City Thunder team so much because as a team that already didn't have a ton of perimeter shot creation talent outside of Shea Gills Alexander and Jalen Williams, for Jalen Williams to be out and be out for a significant amount of time, to have AJ come in and be somebody who can still be a stabilizer for you on offense when Shea Gills Alexander is off the floor, it makes it where your lead is actually safe even when he's off the floor because you have somebody who can keep that offensive output going. Maybe not at the same level, obviously, but consistent enough to keep the offense going in the right direction. He can get everybody else in the flow of the game properly in a way that everybody is still kind of moving in one unit. And AJ Mitchell, I think he's somebody that he reminds me a lot of like the conversations around Andrew Nimhart for the Indiana Pacers the last year or two, where it was kind of that conversation of like him coming off the bench and absolutely killing in the postseason behind Tyrese Halliburton had a lot of people contemplating like what could he do as the starting point guard in a different situation, given how talented he is, and kind of being suppressed by the fact that Tyrese Halliburton is just so dang good. And AJ Mitchell is kind of in a similar circumstance with the fact that he's playing behind an MVP and Shea. And AJ looks like somebody that in this league, when you look at a lot of the starting point guard spots, right, or even a handful of different point guard positions, even dating to some of these teams' benches, like again, the Dallas Mavericks, like, could AJ Mitchell come in and start over D'Angelo Russell at that point guard position right now? I really do think he could. Do I think he would be a starting point guard for teams like the Utah Jazz right now? Yes, I do. The Charlotte Hornets, I think he would be an interesting fit next to LaMelo Ball at that starting two guard position. Bump Brandon Miller over to the three. Now you have guys like Con Kneppel, Colin Sexton coming off the bench. That could be an interesting little fit. I think he could be an interesting point guard fit for the Phoenix Suns, are a team that don't have a traditional point guard right now and actually are running Devin Booker at that starting spot right now instead of him being at his natural position at the two. And that's going to be a mainstay of this year because even when Jalen Green comes back, Jalen Green is going to take that two guard spot and Devin Booker is going to remain at the point. So that's another team that could really use a high level starting caliber point guard, and yet AJ Mitchell is coming off the bench for this OKC Thunder team. It goes to show you how special this team is as an organization when it comes to evaluating talent. I think it also goes to show you. I mean, this guy, he came out of UC Santa Barbara, I believe. Like, this is and remember Jalen Williams, he came from Santa Clara. This is this is an organization that is going to be a problem for a long, long time. And we already knew that because of the litany of draft picks they have, their ability to bring in and develop guys like Aaron Wiggins, the big man Jalen Williams out of Auburn, who's really grown as a defender, really grown as an offensive weapon, as a 3-point shooter on the perimeter. Um, Obviously, what they've been able to get out of like guys like Cason Wallace, um, across the board, right? This Oklahoma City Thunder team has already had the blueprint for a team that's gonna be in the mix for a long time. But when we start using that word dynasty, right? It's guys like AJ Mitchell. It's guys like having Nikola Topic still. It's guys like Cason Wallace. Those Aaron Wiggins is one of my favorite players on this team personally, right? It's guys like those that are the linchpins to what help an organization make a dynastic run. See, your star players can be mainstays, right? Your star players can be mainstays, but if the environment around them changes too often, it can create a much more difficult path to travel in terms of being a repeat champion than simply having this core that you can continue to build and build up through. See, a perfect example of this is actually a team in the Western Conference who one for about 30 seconds was staring at a very similar conversation of being a potential dynasty, and that was the Denver Nuggets. See, the Denver Nuggets had slash have the best player in the NBA in Nikola Jokic. And you look at the two-man game of him and Jamal Murray paired with having Michael Porter Jr. They had KCP, Bruce Brown, Aaron Gordon, and they look like this team. You're trotting out the highest scoring, most efficient, most effective starting five in NBA history. With that group that they had once upon a time, you have the best player in the NBA, and you have a guy who, on a year-to-year basis, team tends to be a fringe All Star. Or at least a in the fringe All Star conversation in Jamal Murray, and then you have these role players who just know how to fit within the offense next to Jokic, and you think, well, Jokic is the best player in the league, or at least a top three player in the NBA every single season. His game is conducive to him having real longevity in the league. This is one of those players that he can play basically as long as he wants to play. And ironically, Jokic, compared to other superstars, might be somebody who, peaks at a certain spot and then kind of lets the game go before he really truly should or could, because he has other interests outside of basketball and things of that nature. But when it comes to basketball, he's a top three player on a year-to-year basis. He has the kind of game that translates to him having a long career. And you pair that with the fact that he has real pieces around him that fit the kind of basketball he plays. You think after they win that championship, you're like, oh, well, they can keep making real runs at this. But the problem was that financially they were not in the circumstance to be able to continue to build off of that, right? That very next year, they let go of Bruce Brown. The very next year, they lose out on KCP to Orlando. This past off season, I wouldn't say they lost MPJ because they moved him for a player that was arguably a better fit for their roster right now in trading MPJ for Cam Johnson. But again, another integral piece to that championship run moved. So year after year after year, 3 years in a row since winning that championship, the guys who got you to the dance, you're missing another piece of the puzzle every single season. And it's shown in their postseason performance, because even though they've been a team that's been able to get out of the first round, they haven't nearly been that same kind of championship contender since winning the chip. They've always been in contention, they've always been in the conversation, but the Minnesota Timberwolves gave them a hell of a series in that series that they won. The Golden State Warriors obviously have won a championship since then. The Lakers have improved their talent. Granted, they're in a tough spot because outside of Luka Doncic and LeBron James, they have a lot of work, and Austin Reeves as well. They have a lot of work to do. But that team was a top three seed last year as well, right? The Western Conference is catching up with a team like the Denver Nuggets, and that's why they had to have such an active offseason this past summer. The Oklahoma City Thunder, they didn't have to do anything this summer because the internal development from guys like AJ make it where they're getting better without having to add more to what is already, a very top heavy roster as far as their finances are concerned. They have a ton of money already allocated to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren, and Jalen Williams with their most recent contract extensions. So they need the roster around them to be more flexible as far as the finances are concerned. Actually, Isaiah Hartenstein has a team option at the end of this season, which makes him either a potential trade asset or makes it somebody that after this season, to open up some more finances, they might end up letting walk. But again, they have so many guys that are cost controlled, that are just so dang good, that they can continue to build this out. And that doesn't even factor in the millions of draft picks they have, where if they continue this trend of hitting on guys that just fit what their culture is built around, even as guys like Ajay Mitchell and Cason Wallace get more lucrative opportunities in different organizations, because there will be money for those guys on the open market down the line, This team can just keep going at the well at building that internal talent on cheaper contracts around this core, this main trio they have. It's a special situation for the Oklahoma City Thunder. AJ Mitchell is not necessarily like the poster child for the Oklahoma City Thunder developmental system because they have a handful of different guys that I think fit that criteria. But right now, dude, he he is looking like he looks like their third best player right now with Jalen Williams out. And that's special given the fact that he is, again, coming off their bench. You guys let me know in the comment section down below how many teams do you think AJ Mitchell could start on right now, outside of the Oklahoma City Thunder, obviously? How many teams do you think that he could start on right now? And give me your three teams that you think he would best fit on as the starting point guard if you were to pluck him off of OKC and put them on their roster right now. Obviously, I gave you the three from the article being the Rockets, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the Dallas Mavericks. But you let me know. Would you agree with those three? Or do you think there's three other teams that would be a better fit? Or is there some combination of those? I'm interested to see you guys' list because I think AJ Mitchell has a place in this league for sure. And he's going to be a guy that I think not on this roster, but on somebody else's roster down the line is going to be a special starting point guard. But in the meantime, I think he's just going to be the backup point guard for an OKC Thunder team as a integral piece to them trying to make a run at being back to back champs. And so far, he's looking like a big reason of why they have a chance to actually pull it off.